Welcome to the Grow Your Business and Grow Your Wealth podcast with Gary Heldt. Gary is an expert in helping business owners put together a plan that will provide a better future for their businesses, themselves, and their families. On the podcast, Gary interviews other professionals who share his vision, and together they share secrets and strategies any business owner can use to build a better financial foundation for your business and your life.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. This week, my guest is Adam Koós, and he is the president and portfolio manager at Libertas Wealth Management Group. Welcome, Adam.
Thanks so much, Gary. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, definitely. Adam, give me your background. What got you into this before you became the portfolio manager and everything?
My whole life, I wanted to be like my dad. I would come home from middle school on my bike. I'd stop at his office. He was an optometrist. And I would watch him interact with his patients, with his staff. I just admired how much they loved him and how much his staff got along with him. And I just thought, one day I want something like that. I want to help people and have that kind of thing. And went to school for pre-med, shadowed him for a day and realized that optometry is very boring. Which one's better? This one, that one. What about this one? What about that one? So I ended up getting into emergency medicine, and that was the plan. And to make a very long story short that I won't bore you with, I had some things happen in my life that caused me my senior year to drop out of the pre-med program, and I ended up a financial surgeon instead. We went from pre-med to finance and financial planning and investment management. And I started my career at 21 years of age. I always say 10 days before the World Trade Center went down, I weighed 60 pounds lighter, so I looked like I was 16. And I was going door to door, business to business, trying to get people 3 times my age to trust me with their life savings, sure. Which wasn't an easy thing to do when you consider the markets precipitously falling. But then I was a fast starter. I busted my butt. I worked hard and started this company, Libertas, at November 4th of 2004. So I was 25 years old when I hung my own shingle. And eventually it took a few years, but I ended up getting exactly what I wanted, which was to have what my dad had, but maybe not optometry, instead financial services.
Right.
And then in 2020, right around the time you started your podcast here, I was reading a book called Walking to Destiny by Chris Snyder. And the statistics that I read upset me. They made me angry. They shocked me. And the statistics, you've probably heard them, are 80% of business owners' net worth is in their company, which you're shaking your head because everybody shakes their head when they hear that. Yep, that makes sense. But the other 80% stat is that 80% of businesses don't sell. They dissolve at the end of the day. And then 75% of the 20% that do sell for less than market value, which is just depressing. I think of times when the market was crashing in 2008, coming home, giving my wife a kiss and kind of sneaking into my home office and trying to find things to sell on eBay to pay our mortgage because I didn't have enough money to pay the mortgage. And to think that at the end of my career, I would have nothing, there'd be no monetizing my life's work, was just mind blowing to me in all the worst ways you could possibly imagine. So I dedicate, even though we work with clients of all kinds, executives, C-suite, D-suite, SVP, VP executives, a lot of the time, we have a lot of firefighter clients, police, fire, people who work for the Department of Education here in Ohio. We're in Columbus, so capital of the state. But from 2020 on, I wanted to make sure that I was focusing my time on bringing awareness to owners out there because we do not understand that you can't wait until you're ready to sell to start planning to sell. You just can't. So that's the 3-minute background, if that was 3 minutes.
Yeah, I think that you bring up an important part about the business owner and getting out. So I want to put a pin in that, come back to it, because I think that's something extremely important for us to talk about, because just like you, I've read many books and have seen many businesses that people come the day before and say, "Oh, I'm selling my business," and they're not getting anywhere close to what it's really worth. So we'll come back to that. What is it about the financial arena that really gets you excited and gets you to really stay in this? Because obviously you were looking at the medical field there for a while and then made that switch. And then now that you've done this for 20 years now.
Yeah.
What is it that keeps you excited and keeps you revved up to keep doing this?
That's a great question. I'm smiling because it's a fun question to answer. I'll give you 3 answers. 2 have to do with me and my business, and the third has to do with kind of my personal mission. So the 2 that have to do with me and the business is that for the same reason I wanted to do emergency medicine, I get really bored really easily. And in this business, whether you're dealing with wild and crazy looking portfolio, if you're dealing with a very complicated financial planning situation, somebody who's got a complicated stock options program at their place of work. It's always, the people are always different too. So everything's different every single day, which is really interesting to me. That's part of it. The other part, I'd say part two, is that I've learned about myself that I go back to the routine thing. I've learned about myself that if it's easy, I don't like doing it. I get bored. So growing a business is not easy. So I really love growing the business and seeing how many people I can help, understanding we can't save the world, right? And then the other part is I love the stock market because you can never always win. It's always a challenge. The saying in the market is, and I can't remember who was credited this quote, and I apologize, I don't have it off the top of my head, but if 6 out of 10 of your trades win, then you're phenomenal. And that's the mission. And you're going to lose 40% of the time, and you got to get used to that. You got to let your winners run and keep your losers short. So that's the second part. The third part goes along with part 2A, which is my personal mission every day when I wake up. What really gets me fired up is saving people from bad advice and bad advisors. And I don't want to disparage my industry. I got to be careful there, but there, unfortunately, across the financial industry, all you have to do is turn on the news. There's no shortage of bad advice, and unfortunately, sometimes bad advisors. And again, you can't save everybody, but that's what fires me up. That's what wakes me up every morning, is trying to save as many people as we can anyhow.
Yeah, I think across all of our professions, we have the people who pretend like they know what they're doing and they really don't. They're really looking out for themselves and not for their clients. I always tell people, it's when you're looking for somebody and a professional to help you, look for somebody who is looking to build a relationship and to work with you long term. And you can see the indicators by what they're doing. That's what they want to do, and not just hear the words from them. So
Yeah.
I think that's always something that's important to do.
Yeah, I agree.
What are some of the mistakes that you see people making when they are picking that professional to
Okay.
work with them?
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest mistake that people make is they don't start their search with only looking at fiduciaries. Unfortunately, there's these things called lobbyists in our country, and lots of money gets spent in Washington on changing laws and making them such so that the big money can have their way. And one of the things that changed, I don't know, 7 to 10 years ago, I can't remember at this point how long ago it's been exactly, but some laws were changed on the fiduciary law where people who are not technically fiduciaries all the time are allowed to call themselves fiduciaries as long as they disclose when they're not acting in a fiduciary capacity, which to me is an oxymoron or a conflict in itself, because my opinion is, if you're not a fiduciary all the time, then you're not a fiduciary. But that's just my opinion, and the law disagrees with me. So I think that probably one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give the public when you're looking for a financial professional, whether it be someone to help you with your business, so business advisory services, 401k, your life savings, trying to make work optional and stay that way, is to look for somebody who's a true fee-only fiduciary. And the easiest way to do that is to go to napfa.org. That's NAPFA, the National Association of Personal Financial Advisors.org. Put your zip code in there, and it'll pull up a list of all the fee-only fiduciaries, which are people who are the only true fiduciaries, in my opinion. And then what makes them true fiduciaries, because I remember a client asking me this several years ago, and I thought, wow, what a great question. Everyone asked that. They said, how is it upheld? They said, is it like the Hippocratic Oath? You put your hand on a Bible and you say, I won't, I will. And it's not actually. The way it works is, in order to be a NAPFA registered fee-only fiduciary, you have to drop all your brokerage licenses. You have to drop all the licenses that would make it such you could charge a commission. Because the problem with our industry, whether you're working with business owners or not, is commissions. It's the conflicts of interest that arise from being able to get paid differently on different types of investment products, life insurance, things like that. So when you become a fee-only fiduciary, a true fiduciary, I'll never forget 2013, my birthday, when if I didn't renew my licenses, I had to retake the exam for the Series 7, Series 63, Series 24, Series 31, life, health, long-term care licenses. That's probably the biggest piece of advice. What people should start with, they should be starting with looking for fiduciaries first and foremost. And then from there, I think that if they already have an advisor, they should be asking, are you a fiduciary? Are you a NAPFA registered fee-only fiduciary?
Now, why is that important? You
Sure.
talked about commission and stuff like that. Can you go into that a little bit more? Because I don't think that people really understand that, there's different commissions based on different products that they're selling.
Yeah. Yeah. We could talk about this for the next 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I'll give you a couple scenarios. I'll plan, excuse me. I'll plan on two. By the way, there's that sickness that I had 4 weeks ago that won't go
Right.
away. So I'll cut so your producer can cut this. So I'll plan on two. We'll see where this goes. But I'd say the first scenario is you're a relatively new advisor who's been in the business maybe 3, 5 years, and they need to pay their bills. If they're given a choice between putting you in a portfolio that's going to pay them, say, 1.5% per year, and that's their income divided by 12. So that annualized 1.5, but they get 1/12 of that, or putting you in an investment that's going to pay them 7% right now up front, there might be a conflict of interest there that maybe I need to get those bills paid. If
Right.
I'm a really successful financial advisor that is not a fiduciary, a broker, a hybrid, whatever, and I'm doing really well, I'm being badgered by my spouse to really get a new deck on the back of the house, and I get $1 million portfolio in front of me, a new client with $1 million, and I know that I could put half that $1 million into an investment that pays me 7% upfront or more for that matter, I'm going to get $35,000 right now and the deck's paid for. So even if the advisor is really successful, and even if they're very ethical, they still have this kind of the angel on your shoulder that's sitting there. Oh, it's the option that's the problem. It's not that the advisor is the problem. So that's another scenario. And then to your point about different things paying different commissions, there's different types of mutual funds. Like we don't use mutual funds at our office, but there's A share mutual funds, which pay a commission up front. You'll see it. There's B share mutual funds, which pay the advisor 4% upfront, but you'll never see it. There's C share mutual funds, which pay usually 1% upfront and a 1% per year trail is called. There's annuities that will pay 7% upfront and nothing for the first 7 years. And then they start paying 0.25%. There's portfolios you can put people in where you can choose whatever rate you want. It could be 1% per year. And the clients, or we'll use easy numbers here, 1.2% per year. So 0.1% per month is the fee. So there's unfortunately too much minutia. To your point, one of the points of your podcast is getting rid of the acronyms. The problem with finance is there's too many acronyms.
Yeah. I think that, why I'm harping on this a little bit is that the financial advisors that are saying that, that when you do good, I do good type thing, but is it? You're doing good because you're investing more money with me. I'm doing good because I'm taking your money and putting it where I want and earning my commissions on the different products as compared
Right.
to truly helping you build a portfolio that if you decide that, hey, this one particular product isn't really what I really want, me as a fiduciary, I don't care because
Mhm.
I can shift it into something else. And that's one of the things I like about me being the CPA is because I have zero vested interest in what product is being invested in or what type of retirement plan or whatnot. I'm looking at it more, okay, how can we put more money away tax effectively and be able to grow things? So that's
I got a fun one for you.
yeah.
Actually, just because you brought that up, two things. One, something that people don't ask a lot about that you just brought up in a roundabout way is the whole if I do well, you do thing. We get this question every once in a while, which is, so if things go well, then you get paid more, like if our portfolios goes up in value, so does your income, right? But if it goes down in value, you still get paid. It's not a common question, but it happens every once in a while. I say, so why do you get paid at all if the portfolio goes down? And the answer to that question is twofold. One, it's if you do a really great job in a market that's down like 2007, 8, and 9, market's down 57% from top to bottom, and you do a great job and they're only down, say, 18%, then you go out of business within what, 6 months, as soon as because you're not getting paid. So that's not possible. The second piece of that is there are companies that charge on profits only, and they're called hedge funds. And everybody's heard of a hedge fund, but the way they charge is not just on profits. They charge I don't mean to hear, it's not really an acronym, but they say 2 and 20 or 3 and 30. And what that means is they charge 2% per year plus 20% of profits, or they might charge 3% per year plus 30% of profits. So hedge funds are incentivized to speculate like crazy because they make their money on the profits. And then when things don't go down, that 3% isn't really all exciting to them. So that's the first thing. The other thing, because you mentioned being a CPA, tax efficient investing, here's another thing that comes into fees and commissions that we're working on right now, actually. We've got a commercial real estate company down in Miami that's working with us and referring some clients to us who are typically doctors, attorneys. They own the building that they're practicing out of, and they're getting out of the business, and they want to sell their building. Problem is they paid $400,000 for the building, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and now it's worth 20. I'm not 20, I'm sorry. Say it's worth 2 million. 20 million would be amazing, by the way.
Yeah.
But it's worth 2 million now. They don't want to pay the cap gains tax. They also don't want to 1031 it into another like-kind property. So in other words, they don't want to exchange it to another investment property. So there are these things called DSTs, which stands for Delaware Statutory Trust. And it's a way to transfer your real estate from active real estate into passive real estate that pays, say, 3.5% per year cash flow. So you can get interest of 3.5% per year, avoid the capital gains tax completely. And when that property is sold someday, you can just 1031 it again and again and again. And eventually one day you'll pass away like we all do, and it'll step up in basis. And now your family gets all that money tax free. But with that all being said, while it's a really cool strategy, most of the people that offer them are charging 6 to 7% commissions. Whereas again, a fiduciary, we charge a flat fee. It doesn't really matter if it's $10 million or $100,000. The work's the same if you're doing one DST for both of those transactions, even though you probably wouldn't, but I digress.
I think that I've had some clients that we've done that with, and it makes a ton of sense with somebody who, like you're saying, doesn't want to pay the capital gains, but they don't want to be in the business of managing property.
Exactly.
We've even had people, besides the commercial real estate, also do it with some residential stuff and a lot smaller deals. But I think that's, again, looking at it that you're a fiduciary, it's okay, you're trying to think outside the box for people also, which is really helpful because too many times people they want to fit things in a box. And it isn't always good for the clients if we do that, for sure.
We're back to my disdain for routine now.
Exactly. Exactly. I want to get back to with the business owner and selling their business and things like that. I've run into many times where the business owner has, again, the day before saying, okay, here, I got my business is sold. And it's like, what do you mean your business is sold? Can you talk about that a little bit? Because you've gotten into that arena now and looking at what you would advise a business owner at this point, say that they're in their mid-50s when they have their business. What advice would you give them?
I think it'd be two things. One, I'll tell you like a couple pieces of advice, and then I'll tell you a story. So one, I would say to any business owner in their mid-50s looking to sell someday, they should start planning now. They shouldn't wait. That's the problem with the industry as owners. When I say as owners, we as owners, we keep saying we'll deal with it when it's time to sell, but that's not the time to deal with it. And if you want to sell your company and monetize your life's work for what it's worth, then you should plan for it. And you should give yourself at least 3 years to do it. That planning should involve at least I'd say a 6 to 12 month process with somebody who knows how to build a plan. That's what we do. It would then be handed off to a fractional CFO or CPA who would then implement that plan with the owner, executives, if there's multiple owners. And then usually there's somewhere in the ballpark of 12 pillars of change we can make. We're not going to try and change all 12. We're going to try and focus on say 6 that are going to move the needle the most. Because what we're trying to do here is we're trying to increase the absolute value of the company first and foremost. And the second thing we're trying to do is increase the multiple. And the multiple can change, but it's usually based on intangibles. It's based on things like what's your top client? What's the percentage of revenue that top client is responsible for? What is the average revenue for the top 5 clients? How involved is the owner? Any buyer wants to see a company where the owner's not as much involved. They can come in and buy it. They don't want to buy a job. They want to buy a company. Things like continuity plans, having a continuity plan in place. Things like having, I don't want to call them golden handcuffs, but having incentive bonuses or salary contracts in place with the key employees so they don't leave within 6 months after selling. There's so many things that you can do. I could go on and on about this, more time than we have.
I was going to say, I think this may be a part 2, because like you said, what I wanted to get out of you today with that is just that there are a lot of pieces to it, and that it's not something that you can accomplish in 6 months, 12 months even. And definitely like to get back with you on a part 2 on that, because I think that's something that is extremely important for those business owners, because we have, again, the baby boomers, and they're all starting to retire and things like that, and they need to do something with those businesses, and a lot of them don't have family to leave it to, or they have the family, but they don't want to operate the business.
And maybe they
Um,
shouldn't sell it to their family. This is something I'm
right.
pretty passionate about, actually. I have 2 boys. I will not allow them to take my company over. And here's why. I think that the best buyer for my company is going to be somebody who's just as passionate about this business as I am, that's going to take great care of our clients, that wants a turnkey operation they can walk into. I would rather sell my company someday to somebody like that and reinvest a small percentage of that into one of my kids' businesses that they're passionate about than to try and put a square peg in a round hole. What are the chances that one of my 2 children just happen to be great for financial advisory service? Probably pretty small.
Yeah, yeah. I have 2 kids myself, and neither one of them want to have anything to do with the business. But they like coming in and helping out and stuff like that, and they do that. But neither one of them are like, yeah, Dad, no, not interested. So, Adam, tell it. What have I not asked you? You wish I had.
Oh, geez. I've loved this conversation so far. It's right up my alley. God, what haven't you asked? We talked about fees a lot, which is good. There's a lot of noise and minutia in the fee world. We talked a little bit about business transition consulting, so exit planning. I love the fiduciary question you asked because that's a key one. That's an easy one that nobody knows about, or very few people anyway. I would say, how about this? I would say that for owners, be very careful when somebody tells you to invest in something other than your 401k plan or company sponsored retirement plan if you haven't maxed it out. When somebody says, what about a Roth or what about a life insurance retirement plan, or another phrase, marketing phrase for those are ELIPs, executive life insurance plan, I believe that a lot of these investments should be last. There's a pecking order. There's a pecking order. And the first thing you should do is you should have a company retirement plan for your company, obviously a 401k, simple SEP, whatever makes the most sense for you. And then you should max that bad boy out, reduce your tax bill as much as you possibly can before you even think about Roth IRAs, brokerage accounts, and especially life insurance. So how about that?
There you go. There you go. I think the other thing I see many, and this is doctors and physicians, dentists, etc., that someone had told me, and this was another physician said that these are dumb medical investments that people make. And what she meant by that was that they were going out to invest in other businesses that they knew nothing about, but somebody told them that they could make a lot of money. So they jumped into it and make that dumb business investment. And again, that was
Shiny
a
thing,
physician who told me it's one of those things where it's invest in what I think that's a smart thing to do.
especially the business. Yeah.
Adam, if people like what they hear and they want to reach out to you, learn more about you and your business, how can they do that?
First place is probably LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest place to find me. Probably just Google me, just Adam Koos. But the 2 websites to check out would be libertaswealth.com and then elevateandexit.com for specifically education and free tips on exit planning, business transition planning.
Great. Adam, appreciate your time today and enjoyed our conversation.
No, thank you.
Yep. Hey, this week my guest was Adam Koós, and he is the president and portfolio manager at Libertas Wealth Management Group. Thank you, and I'll see you guys next week.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com.